Welcome to the Friday edition of Juan's World, and I'm going to do some cooking today, even though I hadn't originally intended to, because I had a bit of a nostalgic moment. Back when I was living in the United States, I used to celebrate Christmas in two ways. Well, many ways really, but there were two distinct days when we celebrated Christmas. Christmas Day itself was my family day. It was my wife and I when we were younger, and then when our son was born, it was the three of us on Christmas Day itself. We opened our presents, and then I would make a roast goose and all the trimmings, and then a Christmas pudding, mince pies, and so forth. And then the day after, what's called Boxing Day in England, my sister and her son would come over, and also my friends Margaret and Jerry, who were from England, and assorted other people would be invited one year or another. And I would make a really big feast. I'd have at least two roast meats and Christmas pudding, of course. And I also made a veal ham and egg pie, which is what you can see here. Very traditional picnic food, apart from anything else. What Sam Weller in Dickens' Pickwick papers used to call a wheel and hammer. Very traditional pie, made with what's called slack pastry or raised pastry, which is very firm, so that when the pie is made and chilled, you can take it out of its mold and hold it. Like the classic pork pie in England is a typical example. It's a pie that you can hold in your hand. You eat it cold, and with the veal ham and egg pie, you make slices, but you can still hold them if you want to. And I thought, well, my sausage rolls were not really sausage rolls this year because I didn't have sausage meat, and I thought, well, why not? So I went on the internet and I found a recipe for English sausage meat. It's not that difficult. It's minced up lean pork plus some pork fat, and then a ton of spices and some herbs. Well, why not? Why not make up my own sausage meat? I can't get veal in Cambodia at all, which is one of the reasons I've never made a veal ham and egg pie here. Can't get it pretty much anywhere. I suppose I could have got it in Italy, but I was not really cooking for multitudes back then, so I didn't make pies in those days. I suppose I could have, but I guess the incentive wasn't there. Well, this year I thought, let me make a pie with sausage meat and eggs. And then I went online, and lo and behold, it's such a thing. It exists in England. It's called Scotch egg pie. And Scotch egg is boiled egg surrounded with sausage meat and deep fried. Also carry in your pocket snack like a pork pie. So here we go. Let's make some raised pastry. Let's make a sausage meat pie with some eggs, and bake it off and see where we go. So let's get started. Well, the first thing to do is to make the sausage meat, and I use my food processor for this. I had some minced up pork, but I didn't have minced pork fat. So I had to just kind of chop that up. I use a food processor just to get it finely chopped. Add the pork, and then add the spices. And the spices are mace, nutmeg, ginger, sage, thyme. The recipe I had called for onion powder, but I thought, well, that's because they want the onion flavor, but they don't want to put onions in there. Well, I've got a ton of shallots. The shallots are very easy to come by here in Phnom Penh. So I finely chopped a shallot, and I used fresh ginger rather than powdered ginger, black pepper, and just dump it all in, process it all together, and we're ready to go. So the next thing to do is to make the pastry, the raised pastry, what we call slack pastry or hot water pastry. And for this you need lard. And I've also not been able to find lard in Cambodia for some reason or other. But my Australian supermarket, where I go a couple of times a week, had blocks of what they call dripping, but when I looked at it, it looked like awfully lot like lard to me, so I bought a block of that. And so 150 grams of lard and a cup of water in a pot, and boil it up. And you boil until the lard dissolves, and then mix it all together, and then you dump it into 4 cups of flour. And then you have to use a wooden spoon because you've got boiling fat in there, but you stir it as much as you can, and it does take a while because it doesn't incorporate very easily. So you toss it around as much as you possibly can, and every now and again you feel to see how hot it is, and once it's reduced in temperature enough that you can use your hands, and you get your hands in there and you poke it around and push and knead and so forth until you've got yourself a dough. And the recipes that I've seen recently are just plain wrong. They say, okay, I cover it in cling foil and let it sit for an hour and then roll it out. So, no. You have to work with it when it's warm. And when I was making my pies in New York, I used to do what classic English bakers do. That is, I would just take the whole wad of pastry, divide it up into 3/4 and 1/4, put the 3/4 in my baking dish, and then press with my hands. And it's called raised pastry because you push and push and push, and then when you fill the bottom of the pan, then you keep working with your fingers and you raise it up until you've got the edges. And that's what I used to do. And you have to do it with hot pastry. You can't do it when pastry's cold, then it's all brittle and it just breaks up. You have to work with it when it's hot. Well, I'm not a big fan of that anymore, so I just got out my rolling pin and rolled my pastry and fitted it in my dish. Added about half a level of the pork sausage mix. Then boiled eggs in a loin. Then some more pork on top. It's a little bit difficult to cover the eggs as it happens because they they tend to stick quite close to the surface. I should have had a slightly less pork in the bottom, but anyway, I did cover them. Then roll out the top, seal off the top, poke a hole right in the middle, and into a hot oven and bake. It takes about an hour in a in a 250 degrees Celsius oven. And here's the finished product. And then the final thing that you have to do, the final task to complete the pie, is to add some stock and gelatin mix. And so you boil up some pork stock, which I have here, and add some unflavored gelatin, and then whisk it all around so it's all mixed, and then put a funnel into the hole that you've created in the pie, and just pour in some of the broth with gelatin. And it's going to take a while. Back in the old days when I used to make the veal ham and egg pies, it sometimes would take me 2 days to get enough broth and gelatin in. I didn't wait quite that long, but you do have to just set the funnel in there and set the broth in there, and it just slowly seeps in. And then refrigerate overnight, and what happens is that all the spaces that are left in the pie are filled with the aspic from the gelatin. And then you turn out the pie. It's kind of difficult usually because it's fairly fatty on the outside of the pastry, and so when it's been refrigerated, it clings to the pan pretty hard. So I had to immerse it in boiling water and then turn it out, cut it open, and here's the result. Same as a veal ham and egg pie, except it's sausage meat and egg, served with sliced up tomato and some yellow Coleman's mustard. That's very hot English mustard, and that's a treat. Well, that's going to be that's going to be my lunch for probably the next 3 or 4 days, because it's a big pie, but it is a memory of Christmases past. So if you like my videos, please tell your friends, please like and subscribe, and I'll be back on Tuesday. Now in the week to come is going to be the week leading up to Christmas, and so I'm going to be doing a lot of different Christmassy things, and I'll let you know at the time. Have a good weekend.